Okay, religion in TV shows and movies. Sometimes they're done really well, and sometimes, yeah. We are gonna look at some clips from some popular TV shows and movies today depicting religion, and we're just gonna analyze them. Let's go.
So what do you think the odds are that God exists?
I think there's zero. I believe in science.
So you don't think science and religion can go hand in hand?
Science is facts. Religion is faith. I prefer facts.
I understand that. Here's a cool fact for you. A lot of famous scientists believed in God. Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, even Charles Darwin.
So Darwin's right about God and wrong about evolution?
Now you're getting it. Let's give it up for Sheldon, everybody. This is the worst.
Look, I understand this is satire, but this is kind of cringeworthy even by satire standards. I do like young Sheldon though, it's a good show. I think fundamentally Sheldon makes 3 mistakes in this one clip. He makes a mistake about science, he makes a mistake about faith, and he also doesn't seem to know the arguments for God's existence from science, which do exist. I'll get to them. First, on science, Merriam-Webster Dictionary says, a knowledge or a system of knowledge covering general truths or the operation of general laws, especially as obtained and tested through scientific method. Such knowledge, or such a system of knowledge, concerned with the physical world and its phenomena. I think the theme that we should take away from here is that science is mostly concerned with quote-unquote the physical world. Now, you might disagree with that definition of science, especially because recent science has branched out of the physical world. Think of psychology. But the point that we're trying to get at here is that what science doesn't do is talk about the metaphysical world, questions regarding God's existence, for example. I think a common misconception is people think that science is against God. It is true that scientists, as well as philosophers, theologians, and what have you, have interpretations of science, which they then use to talk about whether God exists or not. But when Sheldon says that he believes in science because it is facts rather than faith, I think that implies that science is somehow against faith or against God, which I really don't think is true at all. I don't think it says anything about God. Now, faith is sometimes used in this sense in Merriam-Webster Dictionary, a firm belief in something for which there is no proof. I think this is what this show is trying to say, but I mean, which religious person would say that what they believe in is based on no proof, am I right? Well, maybe some of us do. A more accurate definition of faith for most people would be here, a belief and trust in and loyalty to God, or belief in the traditional doctrines of a religion. If we want to go a little bit more specific, religious people would typically describe faith as a source of knowledge alongside science and other things. Not everything we believe in as a society comes from science. In fact, lots of things don't come from science. For example, in the legal realm, human testimony is regarded as generally a reliable source of knowledge. That's not science. News is not science. A conversation with your friends is not science. Social media is not science, although believing in stuff on social media is
ill-advised.
When Sheldon says that he believes in science because it is facts rather than God because that's faith, I think that is a bad faith, pun intended, interpretation of the word faith. Very few religious people would go with that definition. It's up to you to decide whether faith is a valid source of knowledge, but I think it's in bad faith to say that faith is against facts somehow. Lastly, and this is something that I think is a little bit disappointing because the show could have really made satire about this, we've got lots of development in the philosophy of religion from science arguing for the existence of God. 2 examples of this are the fine-tuning argument, and perhaps most popular of all is the Kalam cosmological argument popularized by philosopher William Lane Craig. These guys use what is widely considered to be the cutting edge of cosmology and biology to demonstrate that God does in fact exist. We've got a major field of study in the philosophy of religion that uses findings from respectable scientific disciplines to argue for the existence of God. Look, this is not to say that you have to agree with their findings or their conclusions, but I think it is willful ignorance to say that science is against God when in fact there is a wealth of literature out there arguing for the existence of God from scientific perspectives.
If you don't believe in heaven and hell and all that, why don't you just go around raping and murdering as much as you want?
I do.
What?
I do go around raping and murdering as much as I want, which is not at all.
Because he's got a conscience.
But if death is just the end, what's the point?
What's the point in what?
Living. Might as well just kill yourself.
So if you're watching a movie and you're really enjoying it, something with Kevin Hart in,
Yeah.
and someone points out that this will end eventually, do you just go, oh, forget it then, what's the point, and just turn it off?
No, because I can watch it again.
Well, I think life is precious because you can't watch it again. I mean, you can believe in an afterlife if that makes you feel better. Doesn't mean it's true. But once you realise you're not going to be around forever, I think that's what makes life so magical. One day you'll eat your last meal, smell your last flower, hug your friend for the very last time. You might not know it's the last time. So that's why you should do everything you love with passion, you know? Treasure the few years you've got because that's all there is.
I watched Ride Along 2 5 times.
Well, you haven't wasted your life then.
Definitely not. No. Love Kevin Hart.
Yeah.
Everything about him. His humour, his comedy, his films.
Comedy films mainly.
Mainly, yeah.
Yeah. Whatever gets you through.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming over.
That's a lot better than... I mean, it's kind of a low bar, actually, to clear from the last one. I've seen some of other Ricky Gervais's work. Is that how you say his name? Ricky Gervais? Hold on.
Yo soy Rancho Galvez. Rancho.
Okay, so a more accurate site tells me it's pronounced Ricky Gervais. I don't even know, man. I just work here. Anyway, I've seen some of Ricky Gervais's work, and this, I think, is an excellent take compared to a lot of his other ones. I think if you're non-religious, you'll very quickly run up against what we call... I bumped the mic. You'll very quickly run up against what we call existential nihilism. This effectively says that life has no purpose or meaning, at least on an objective sense. There's no greater being out there who gives you purpose or meaning like what a lot of religious people would believe in. This, I think, causes some degree of anxiety in a lot of people. How do you deal with existential nihilism? I think the female character here, played by Diane Morgan. Okay. She basically proposes one solution to this, which is just to end it or just kill yourself because there's no meaning or purpose to life anyway. I think that's a terrible way to go about life. I think what Gervais says in this movie is actually a really, really good take and has echoes of the school of philosophy known as existentialism. Basically, he's saying live an authentic life, live a passionate life, do what matters to you, do what is valuable, and do that while you have the time on this earth because, as he says, you only have one shot at this life. I think this is the healthiest, most productive take on life if you have no particular religion. You're an atheist or an agnostic. I think the trouble is remembering to live that way. I think we get caught up in all sorts of things in life that don't really matter, so that in our final days, if we have the privilege of even having our final days in a hospital bed, we reflect on our lives, we have lots of regrets because we never did what really mattered.
Man, I sound so pretentious.
Oh, the things I do for clicks, you know what I'm saying?
Religion.
Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God.
Please, that's not necessary. I'm just God's messenger. And lo, what a wondrous message it is. Like this, from the book of Psalms. God will shatter the heads of his enemies, the hairy crown of those who walk in their guilty ways, that you may bathe your feet in blood. As true today as it was when it was written. Now, let's open it up to some Q&A. Yes, Lisa Jr.?
Amy said there are lots of religions. Which is the right one?
Well, not the Unitarians. If that's the one true faith, I'll eat my hat.
If the Lord is all-powerful, why does he care whether we worship him or not? Ack just saying.
Well, Eck, It's because God is powerful, but also insecure, like Barbra Streisand before James Brolin.
Why did they have a seizure at the start? I think in fairness to The Simpsons, they really did quote from the Bible. What Homer read from was Psalm, not Psalm, Psalm 68 verse 21 to 23. Funny clip, but I think it actually does bring up a really good question for theists, which is, if God is all-powerful, why does he care? You know, whether we worship him or not. Given that Homer read from the Bible earlier in this clip, I think it's fair to give a Christian perspective on this question. I think there are two responses that a typical Christian might give to this question. Number one has to do with purpose. If you're a theist, you very likely believe that when God made you, he made you for a purpose. God made humanity to worship him. That's humanity's purpose. I think it is quite reasonable, actually, for God, if he exists, to make anything he wants and to give it whatever purpose he wants. Perhaps a slightly more diplomatic answer would be in terms of appropriate relationships. A good example of this would be between a married man and woman. The appropriate relationship between them would be one of romantic love. Now, romantic love is probably not appropriate in a sibling relationship or between a grown adult and a child. Even as a society, we understand what is appropriate and inappropriate in terms of relationships. Now, the Christian would typically believe that the only appropriate relationship between a creator and his creation is one of worship. I think it is a far better answer than to say that God is very insecure. I don't think any theists believe that. It is clever though, it is funny. And that is a good question. I think that's it for today. If you would like to see more analysis of clips from movies or TV shows on religion or philosophy, leave a comment down below, maybe give some suggestions. I think there is generally a lack of content out there on YouTube and social media on the philosophy of religion or just religion in general that is both entertaining and balanced. That's what we're seeking to do here at Ponder, to give entertaining and balanced takes on the philosophy of religion. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. You can also find us on YouTube and on your favorite podcasting app. Until next time, signing off.